Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have a really exciting interview ahead of us about living the life you create by design, not default. Today, you're going to be meeting Julie Jones, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who inspires people with a way to transform their stinking thinking into a more courageous way of being so they can get off the hamster wheel, live a life without regret, and have the courage to be who they're meant to be. Sounds so good. Welcome to the show, Julie. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Suzy. I'm really excited to be here.
You are a ray of sunshine with your beautiful earrings and your bright shirt. I love it. I know listeners can't see you right now, but you're adorable. And I'm dying to know where you got those earrings. We'll talk about that later. I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We're going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way to some extent, might be challenging for you, maybe a hiccup or two, and maybe getting in the way of your life and you as a business owner. So let's get started with talking about how old you are, how long you've been an entrepreneur, your entrepreneurial story, and what you do in the world. Take it away.
Wow, that's a lot of information. And I'm really proud to say that I just turned 55 on June 3rd.
Happy birthday.
And thank you. Thank you. I celebrate all month. And, at some point it's going to be celebrating all year because every day is meant to be celebrated, right? And It always makes me a little sad when people don't celebrate their birthdays. It doesn't always have to look huge, but the fact that you are a gift to this world is really, truly meant to be celebrated. So my story goes back just a little bit. I just want to touch upon something that really makes me who I am today. Back in the 90s, I was a police officer and SWAT member. And so for 10 years, I was in that career. And it really, showed me a couple things. The biggest thing is no promise of tomorrow. The hardest thing that I ever had was give death notice and let people, their loved ones weren't coming home. And then it hit home for me personally when at the young age of 57, my mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And then at 59, she passed away. And in that moment, I decided that I was not going to wait for the promise of tomorrow. Even though I had known about it when I was a police officer, we can still get stuck sometimes. But in that moment, I said, I'm not taking my dreams to the grave. So on that forefront, what I do is I've been an entrepreneur for the last 15 years, but really focused in for the last 3 as a speaker and breakthrough coach, as well as I have my own podcast. I have a television show called Stop Waiting, Start Living. And then I am also a 6-time best-selling author. So that's really kind of all of that keeps me busy and a heck of a lot more.
It sounds like it. And, we did have a little hiccup with the internet. One of the things that you said that didn't get clearly expressed was death notices. So you were actually delivering death notices. Wow.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, first of all, to come upon an accident scene where there may be a fatality or, some other tragedy, homicide, suicide, those kinds of things. And I just remember one instance where we had gotten a welfare check to go check on a gentleman. And as it turned out, he took his own life. And when his children showed up at the door, and we still had to investigate it to make sure that it truly was a suicide and not a homicide. I just remember the heartbreak of those kids trying to get into the house and me having to stand there and not allow entry until we were fully investigated. And you had empathy, but being in law enforcement, you really didn't show a lot of emotion. It was a lot of stoicism, in those moments. And so it's one of the reasons why I ended up leaving, because of sometimes the sadness. And you don't see the best of people in that career.
Wow. It really seems like the opposite of what you're doing now. Like your energy and your radiance and excitement, if you had to squish all that down, in that type of career, I think you would have burst it open. Like it seems almost impossible. Wow. So when you left that career, what did you think you were going to do?
That's a great question because I didn't come from a family that had a business background. That was another thing that if I look at some of the challenges that I've had in this journey is that my parents were of the employee mindset, and there's nothing wrong with the employee mindset. Father started working at the age of 25 for the city of Milwaukee and retired at 55, 30 years. That was all they knew. And again, they waited until retirement, that generation of waiting for retirement to live their life. And again, it was cut short. So for me, I knew that there was something else out there for me. And I didn't know what it looked like to be a business owner or to be an entrepreneur. So I've done a multitude of different things. I've been a property manager. I've been a makeup artist. It wasn't until somebody approached me about a direct sales company that I really had the idea to be my own business owner and to go on the road of entrepreneurism. Now, what it did was I didn't like direct sales so much, but what it gave me was the idea of personal growth because I realized I thought there was something wrong with me and there wasn't, but I thought there was something wrong with me. So I started on that journey and I found that I loved what personal growth did for people that I myself decided this is exactly what I want to do is help people live their best life.
That's so good. I also dabbled with direct sales when I got laid off after a 19-year job, 27 years in a career in health education, health promotion. And it was the same thing. Like I didn't end up doing it for long, but it was such an entree into a world I didn't know anything about. And I saw so much potential for women in it. And of course, you buy a bunch of stuff, which is fun. But anyway, that's so interesting. And yeah, you're doing so much. It seems like your creativity has exploded right now.
Well, it has. And I am the yes girl, right? Like I think that as human beings, we are so quick to say no to opportunity. And I remember when I said yes to that direct sales opportunity, I wasn't quite sure what I said yes to. However, being a woman of my word and being committed that I was going to follow through, I'm like, okay, it's not going to kill me just to get the information. And that's what took me. I'm very clear that one yes takes me to where I am today. Like if I had not said yes to that, I'm not sure where I would have been because it's so easy to fall back into what we know. And a lot of times when I was challenged by figuring out what it was that I really wanted to do with my life, there were numerous times that I thought about picking up an application again for law enforcement because I was good and I knew I could do it. And that I almost went back in and there would be that deep down like intuition or fire in my belly that kept saying, no, there's something else out there for you.
Exactly. Yeah. And so one of the most common regrets around is not allowing yourself to be happy. You hear that over and over again from people articulating that's their biggest regret. So yeah, you avoided that one. I love thinking about your past and thinking about where were those why intersections, like where you were at a crossroads and you went this way and you just really articulated one of them. So interesting. Okay. One of the other things I really love talking about on this podcast, and one of the main reason it exists is it's so obvious how much women have on their plate, yet they're also running businesses. They're also showing up and serving and helping and giving back and all of those things. And midlife can be challenging. So tell us a little bit about what midlife challenges have been like for you and why and how have they been getting in the way of you running a business the way you want to?
Well, even though I'm the yes girl, like I want to be very clear on what those yeses look like because one of the things that I've had to learn and I've learned the hard way is that no is a complete sentence. And so I think that that's the biggest thing that I've done for myself in my 50s is realizing that I'm a priority and what's most important to me. And being successful in business is important to me because I've always had this desire to love people and to volunteer and to give time back. But see, that's a little bit of an issue, right? Because if you're volunteering and always want to give back, sometimes you give away too much in pursuit of what can be a successful business. So I really take the time now to look. And it usually takes me about 24 hours before I give an answer on something that if I'm asked to sit on a board or to be part of something, if I'm not quite sure what that time engagement is going to look like. And here's the thing. I believe in saying yes to the get tos, not to the have tos. And so if you find yourself really like thinking about a possible opportunity and you start saying the word have to a lot, it's probably a prime opportunity for you to say no and really realize what you get to do. I just know too many people that don't put themselves as a priority. See, for me, I use an electronic calendar. So when it goes in my calendar for me, it's set in stone. If you're still using paper, which is no problem, it goes in pen. It's not changeable. Like nobody needs to know why it's a no. Again, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah, exactly. It can be that people-pleasing tendency to divulge too much rather than just knowing in your heart of hearts that no is a complete sentence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So good. Yeah, you don't have to convince anybody else, just yourself, that boundary is worth setting.
Right. Right. And I think that because I think a lot of times too, especially with women, number one, and number two is as nurturers, a lot of us, that it's hard to say that no, because again, we have that desire to be able to help and to want to give back. And yet we can give back at our own expense. Like one of my favorite things that I love to, talk about is you're not able to pour from an empty cup. So if you're not filling your cup first, trust me, like you are not going to be good for anybody else in your life. And whether that's personal, like, family, relationships, friendships, and then business, like they all go hand in hand because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're struggling and just say, okay, well, it's only my business life. It doesn't flow into my personal life. Trust me, it does.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, one of the other challenges that you mentioned in your notes was alcohol. Can you tell us a little bit about how that showed up for you?
Well, that's a big one. And I think that for me, that was probably one of my bigger challenges throughout my entire life. So I am a product of my father was an alcoholic and his parents were alcoholics as well. And I always was like, oh no, I'm not an alcoholic, right? Like that label doesn't apply to me until it's December 27th, 2021 is when I made the decision to stop drinking. I looked at how alcohol had been playing a role in my life. A lot of emotional support was alcohol, right? I mean, I would get upset about something or I would say, okay, I'm just going to relax and it's going to be one glass. And pretty soon it was the full bottle. And then waking up with headaches and just not feeling 100% and being tired. And I think the biggest thing though is that I'm such a gregarious, love-filled, friendly person. And when I was drinking, I started to catch myself saying things that were mean. And that was not who I was. And having blackout episodes and other things. And I looked at my life and I looked at it and I said, okay, what do I really want to accomplish? We don't know how much time we have. And there are so many things that I want to do in this world. And alcohol was stopping me. That relationship with alcohol was just really prohibiting my growth and really what I wanted to truly be doing. Because since I made that decision and got the support that I needed, I hired a recovery coach and I did some other things. And I just was like one day at a time. I think the bigger thing for me was all socialization seems to revolve around alcohol, but I really haven't looked back and really missed it. And my life is so much richer because I did say no to the alcohol. And so much of what I've accomplished in the last year and a half have been possible because I said no more. I love me and I chose me first, which was really why I talk about choosing yourself first above everything else that you're doing.
So good. Thank you so much for sharing your experience because that's a firm no. And that's a really important, another why in the road, it was a huge decision for you.
Thank you. And it is. And it still continues to be like, I choose it every day, right? Because, there's sometimes like that little nagging like voice in the back of your head that's like, well, like maybe you really didn't have an issue and you could go back to having, like celebrating. And I'm like, why? There's so many alternatives that are out there now and stuff as well too. But like what you see is what you get. I'm fun whether I'm drinking or not. And I'm crazy whether I'm drinking or not. So, it's like, okay, so then I don't need to introduce the alcohol into a situation.
Yeah, exactly. So good. So good. But you're right about socializing. There's just so much of our culture centers around it. But I'm also noticing that as we age, there are more people not choosing it just because they don't feel great. I mean, I've even noticed that I never did really drink much, but I know that I just don't feel great after. Even if I drink it too late in the evening, I got reflux, can't sleep, terrible.
I had the same thing happening. And then I thought like with the red wine, that had sulfites in it, that I was getting the headaches from that. So a couple of times I switched to white wine, and then somebody said to me, well, white wine has even more sulfites than red wine. I'm like, okay, like again, why am I doing this to myself? It just doesn't make any sense. But I'm hearing a lot more people who in our age range are saying no more because they don't feel great after they drink. It's just not worth the health challenges.
And it's not worth a bad night's sleep.
Right? Oh no, sleep is underrated, right? Like, I mean, when we were 5 years old and being told like we, needed to do nap time. Now I'm like, oh yeah, I love my nap time. It's like, if I'm tired, I'll go take a 15-minute nap because that's all I usually really need.
Oh yeah, it's so good. So I wonder, what have you noticed, if anything, about being, an older and wiser woman, and how that might affect being an entrepreneur? You mentioned in your notes, sometimes you even forget that you're 55. So what's it like for you to, know how old you are and show up as an entrepreneur?
I think that for me, I've come to a point in my life that I don't care as much what other people think. And I really do know that that has made a big difference in being an entrepreneur, because when you are first, I don't know, starting off in life in your 20s and your 30s, we give so much energy to what other people think about or how we look or whatever the situation is. And there is no good, bad, right, or wrong on any of that, because maybe it's the coming of age. But now I'm at the point in my life, like, listen, I went to a leadership seminar once where it was only women. And the first thing that they told us was that nobody was wearing makeup for the next 10 days because it was a mask that everybody hid behind. Now, I was happy about it because it only takes me less than 5 minutes to do my makeup, right? But I'm excited. I'm like, ooh, that's an extra 5 minutes in the morning. There were women freaking out about that, right? I mean, it's like we all have our things that we put energy towards. See, and now I can also have like very real, very direct conversations. Like, again, I don't want to be talking about the weather and some of these other surface conversations. It's like, what's most important to you and how can we make a difference in this world? And even when I coach individuals, I always tell them, listen, you're not paying me for fluff. So it's going to be very direct from a very loving space. However, I'm going to tell you, exactly what it is that you may not want to hear, but you're going to hear because you've got to get out of your own way. And that's exactly what I've done as an entrepreneur myself right now, is I've gotten out of my own way and just said, okay, well, that didn't work. There's a million other, or I should say not even a million. There's an infinite amount of solutions for every single problem. So I found a couple ways that didn't work. Okay, life lesson learned. Let's move on to the next.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing that you mentioned is the sense of urgency. And this is so common and can get out of check sometimes. So when you think about your life and being an entrepreneur, how does this urgency come up for you? Is it more about life? Is it more about your work? Or is it just all enmeshed?
It's all enmeshed. But what I think where the urgency comes in is it's about taking action. Like, I don't sit in the thought process and think about, wonder about like, oh, what would that look like? I mean, yeah, there's some, like, let's be honest. We visualize, we meditate, we do all those kinds of things. But when it comes time to it, I have the urgency behind taking action. I refuse to be frantic anymore. And I don't come from a frantic energy space like I used to. Like it really does come down to like that the priorities that I have in my life, and really realizing in that moment what's most important, and acting with urgency within, not like, like a bat out of hell, right? Like, you wake up out of bed and like, you start running. You will set yourself up for that frantic energy all day long. It's like, be focused, know what you're going to do, and just do it. Like, that's the biggest thing. Don't sit in the paralysis analysis of like, oh, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? You're not going to know until you get off the fence, which is the most painful place to be, and just do it. And whatever happens, I mean, Humpty Dumpty survived, right? So it's like, like really, like you got a crack, you fix it up, and you just keep on going.
Humpty Dumpty. Now, you also mentioned that you often don't take time to celebrate all the amazing things you've accomplished in your journey so far. Why do you think that is?
From my years of experience, what I have found is that I believe as human beings, we have a tendency to look at what didn't get done versus what does get done. And I've seen it happen over and over and over again. And because maybe it's like that combination of that urgency, knowing how young my mom was when she died, being a former police officer, I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Like I accomplished this. What's next? What's next? What's next? And that can get you into a lot of trouble. It's probably one of the reasons why I created a journal called Stop Doing, Start Being. And it's all about the beingness. See, for most human beings, we think that if we have something and then we do, we're going to be, right? Like we're going to be happy. And it's really when you be first, you be happy, that the doing and the having will come, because you are ingrained with who you are and that you're being a certain way. And so it's a different way of thinking. And that's where, I look at things and I'm like, all right. And I have started celebrating more my wins and just really acknowledging myself and recognizing myself. See, as entrepreneurs, sometimes it's hard for us to toot our own horn. However, nobody's going to toot it for you unless you're loud and proud about everything that you're accomplishing. And sometimes I look back and I know that like with some of like if I do something on social media or I put out an email, the responses that I get back, that it inspires people. Like, it doesn't have to look this big. Like, what are you doing in your own life that you can celebrate? Because really, honest to God, just waking up in the morning is enough reason to celebrate. It really is.
Agreed. Really. Tell us a little bit more about your business. What does your actual day-to-day business look like, and who's your ideal client?
Well, it is people in their 40s and 50s, quite honestly, who have decided that they're no longer going to wait, and that they either want to create their first time business or they're ready to level up. They're tired of being on that hamster wheel, and that they really want to get everything that they want out of life. See, I'm very clear that it's about the experiences that you have with people in your world and the memories that you create, not about the things. And I just recently was certified as a master practitioner in NLP, as well as mental and emotional release and hypnosis. So one of the things that I'm very excited about is being able to take people through breakthrough sessions, which I've already done several so far, that help people release the emotional baggage of what's stopping them. So prior to all my certifications, I'm blessed with listening to my intuition and maybe a little bit of that law enforcement background, knowing when people are lying to themselves, knowing when they're saying something that I'm like, yeah, that's really not what's going on. Let's dig a little bit deeper and let's help you get out of your own way so that you can create that life that you desire, because they go hand in hand. They really do.
Do you have a group program?
I have talked about launching like an actual group coaching program. I did a live event last year. People wanted to work with me more still on an individual basis. However, that is something that I am focused in on, is I want to be able to touch more lives. Hence the reason for the television show and the podcast and some of the other things that I do to get more of a message out there. Right now, most of my stuff is individual, but that doesn't mean that I'm always open to connecting and collaborating and seeing where things can go.
Oh, I love it. So what do you want next in your business?
To continue on the journey that I'm on of always growing, learning, and discovering, and what I learn to be able to share and support other people as well. I have a huge goal, and sometimes even that number seems a little small, like to touch 1 million people's lives and whatever that looks like. And we may not always know the lives that we're touching, because I always want people, even if they just met me for 10 seconds, to be better off, that I make eye contact, I say hello, I give them a smile, like it's all about the acknowledgement. However, it's really just going out there, and it doesn't always have to be huge platforms. Like, I know that I do very, very well in rooms of 100 people where they can feel my heart, they can feel my energy, and that they're going to get some individualized attention in that, that large group setting. So, the world is my oyster, and I look at some of the things that I've already accomplished this year, and it's only July 5th. And I'm really excited about the remainder of the year and where the remainder of the year is going to take me, including I'm doing another live event. So a 2-day live event that I put together, produce, create, all that kind of stuff. And it's always a lot of fun and exciting.
That's so good. So this live event, and I read that you have a retreat and you want to focus more on speaking on stages.
Well, yeah. So the retreat, interestingly enough, after I just got this certification, the retreat will be something that I'm going to do next year. I thought that I was going to do it this year, and I'm just switching up a little bit of my game plan based on, what I worked on within myself. And yes, so live event for this year. I am looking to tape season 3 of my television show, the remainder of this year as well. And, I'm always open to what the universe and what God brings me. So it's like, there might be some other awesome opportunity right around the corner I'm not aware of. And then I'm like, heck yes, let's go for it and let's do it.
Well, tell me about the television show.
So the television show is on a network called Zondra, Zondra TV, Zondra. And Zondra's based out of Dallas, Texas. So I fly into Dallas. She has if you want to say, a positive impact television station. So it's all very...
I interviewed her.
Yeah. Did you?
Amazing. Yes.
Yes, she is. And, again, it was an idea. Like, she listened to the messages coming into her. So I got introduced to Zondra last year. I've got 2 seasons under my belt. So the Stop Waiting, Start Living message is just that. It's about individuals who have been knocked down over and over in life, a lot of things that have happened for them, and how they continue to create the life of their dreams. And it could look like life. It could look like business. Most of the people that have been on are business owners in some way, shape, or form. However, it's a platform for people to really share their story, because I also have a belief that everybody has a purpose and a message to share that's unique to them. And I want people to be able to get that message out to the world.
That is so good. All right. I think that somebody listening right now is desperate to get a hold of you. So how can people best find you?
Well, as I always say, there's the one and only Julie Jones. So it's easy to go to my website, juliejones.biz, B-I-Z. And there's a way that you can connect with me, book a free 30-minute phone call with me. And it really, truly is free. It's not a sales gimmick kind of thing. It's really about, bring me your toughest problem and let's see what solutions we can come up with. So, yeah.
So good. And your name is so easy to spell. It's also very easy on a podcast. That's great. Julie, you're awesome. I've really enjoyed meeting you. Thanks so much for taking the time today to connect and to share all of this. I appreciate how much you've gone through yourself and how it's fascinating to me that you ended up coming from something so different and now you're doing this. Fascinating. But I really see how some of those tough decisions you made have really just carried you forward on the path that you were always meant to be on. It's really, really great to see and great to know you.
Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share my story. It really means the world to me. So thank you so much.
All right. That's it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with the show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.